Hi, my name is Kerry Critchlow from RCR Recording Studios, and today we're going to be talking about side chaining. Now, side chaining is a technique where one sound source, or the trigger, controls another signal through a processor like a compressor. Things to note, not all compressors have a side chain function, so you may need to check to make sure the compressor you want to use does have a side chain. And side chaining can also be used for other effects as well for creative uses. So it's not just compressors, but side chain compression is probably the most common. And so that's what we're going to dig into first today. So I've created a track here. And what we've done is we've put together a kick drum here, just a basic little kind of like dancey, clubby kind of kick. And we're going to use that as our trigger, and we're going to use it to trigger our stack here, which is this. Okay, so what side chaining is going to do is we're going to use this kick to trigger the compressor on this track. Now, the way your DAW works may be a little bit differently, but how this one works is that we are going to go ahead and take our side chain, and we are going to put a send into it, into the C1 compressor on the chord stack track. So now what's happening is this kick is now controlling the compressor on this stack. So this compressor is not reacting to this track, it's reacting to the kick track instead. And so we'll go ahead and set it up. We'll go ahead and maybe do like a 4-to-1 ratio. You can play with this, like these numbers don't have to be exact, and you can play with this to kind of dial it in and fine tune it. A few things to note when it comes to like the attack. If we set the attack too low, you're going to start getting clipping or like pops that happen. And if you set it too late, it may not kind of flow right. So you really want to play with the attack and release to dial in exactly the kind of the vibe you want. And so we'll kind of go through that. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the kick all the way down, and we're going to set the send to a pre so that it's not the volume doesn't affect it. And so we're just going to be hearing what is happening on our stack here, right? And as we lower the threshold, you can hear that we're getting clicks and pops, and so our attack is set too low. But you can hear that it's now kind of pumping, right? And the kick is what's triggering that pumping to happen because the compressor is reacting to the kick. And so the kick is doing the automatic volume turn down that the compressor does. So we're going to raise the attack until it feels a little bit more fluid. And then you can also play with the release to get faster or slower kind of times on like when the volume comes back, right? Controlling that pumping sound to a degree, right? Or the timing of that pumping. And then we can bring back in our kick. And if we turn off our compressor, here's what it sounds like with nothing on it. And so adding the side chain is giving it a little bounciness, right? It's giving it a little bit of movement here. And again, you can play with the attack and release settings in order to kind of like dial that pumping, the timing, the rhythm kind of to your exact specifications for what you're going for. Okay. So that is one instance of side chaining, and it's pretty simple. You're basically just using this kick to feed this compressor. And so anytime the kick hits, the compressor will engage on and turn down the volume of whatever track you have it on. It's also commonly used for bass as well. And you know what, we'll just borrow the same settings here. And then we're going to set the compressor to the bass track instead. You could actually have it go to both tracks. You can set up so that the kick will control both of these at the same time. But for right now, we're just going to kind of leave it. But here's what the bass sounds like without the sidechain. And then when we engage the sidechain compression, it's going to get the bass out of the way of the kick. Now, you can make that kind of like that same sort of pumping motion if you want. Oftentimes, sidechaining on a bass is designed to just kind of dial it back a few dB so that the kick can live in that space that the bass is taking up. Yeah, so it's just allowing the low frequencies of the kick to be heard a little bit more clearly when the kick and the bass are happening at the same time. So sidechaining can be very useful on cleaning up like muddy low end or like conflicting low end. So when the bass and the kick are competing, you can use sidechaining to kind of dip the bass down a little bit in volume just when the kick is playing, and then come right back up in volume, and it allows the kick to kind of be heard a little bit better in a like a muddy mix. And then the last thing we're going to do is show kind of a more of a creative example of what you can actually do with sidechaining. So in this case, we're actually going to affect the kick here instead, and we're going to use this Ovox plugin by Waves. It's a fun little plugin, but it also has a sidechain instance here that you can use. And what we're going to do is have our chords sidechain into our kick. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to turn that all the way down. So now the only time that you're going to hear the kick, or when the kick plays, you're going to hear more of like, I don't know, but we're using in this particular instance, we're using the sound of our synth, and it will only trigger when the bass is playing. So it's using the sound of our synth to trigger what's going on in the bass, or the kick rather. Okay, so there are different creative uses that you can use for it. So like in this case, we're using the kick to trigger the synth, and we can use the kick to add rhythmic elements to the synth. So like if we wanted to, say, for instance, add sort of a rhythmic element to our kick, what it would sound like without anything would be, but when we add in this Ovox using the sidechain from our chord stack, Now all of a sudden our chords are only being played when the kick is happening. And so there are creative uses you can get from sidechaining. Not all plugins are going to have sidechain functionality, so you're definitely going to want to check to make sure that they do. And the way that you do sidechaining sometimes is in the plugin itself or through the DAW. It's going to depend on what DAW you're using, how this kind of stuff is going to work. You can look into your manual or check for online tutorials, but this is the basic concept of sidechaining. You are basically using one track as a sound, or one sound source as a trigger to control another signal through a processor, right? And oftentimes it's used from a compression standpoint, meaning like a compression is probably the most often used thing, but there are creative uses as well, so you may want to look into that. Anyways, I hope this video has been helpful. I hope you guys have yourselves a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.